Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. And what could be better than a box of Szell? A big box of Szell. Yes, finally, at last. We've all been waiting for the Warner recordings, which are really the EMI recordings, but who's counting? You know, at this point, all of the major labels that Szell worked for have put out a Szell box. That is, you can get the Decca Phillips stuff, and although I don't think the DG Dvořák Cello Concerto with Fournier's in there. I don't know. I gotta look. Anyway, there's a universal-ish sort of box. Maybe they should redo one, don't you think? And then there's the big Sony box, and now the EMI Warner box. This is one of those things you get just to pet, you know, so that you can say you have it. It's just wonderful. I'm so excited. Now let's go through it. Let's see what's in it. I mean, this is, let's see, 14 CDs. Not overwhelmingly huge. He didn't do that much for EMI. It all came at the beginning of his life and at the end of his life, really, because he left Sony for EMI and started redoing a lot of the stuff he had done for Sony. And that makes for interesting comparisons. The earlier material, some of it is also legendary, and you do have some pieces he didn't otherwise record. So let's take these one at a time. Let me get them out of their little boxy after this enormously flattering photograph on the booklet. Yes. Okay, let's go for it, shall we? Disc number 1. Oh! The Beethoven Violin Concerto. Now, he didn't otherwise record the Beethoven Violin Concerto, which is sort of shocking. And this is with Bronislaw Huberman. This is a great Beethoven Violin Concerto. And the Vienna Philharmonic. And one of the things that's interesting about it is that Szell is much more flexible in terms of his handling of tempi, particularly in that first tutti at the beginning. You know, where it's moving into the third subject, where it's going do 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 do. Oh my God. Da 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 da. That's better. He speeds up going into that quite considerably. It's very interesting. But this is a glorious performance with the Vienna Philharmonic, and it sounds really good. They remastered it quite well, I have to say. I mean, it was recorded in 1436 or some year like that, like a long time ago. No, not quite that early, 1934. But it really sounds good. And you also get the Symphony Espanol, one of my least favorite pieces, because I was trapped playing the snare drum part in the finale. Interestingly, they don't seem to use a snare drum in the finale. I think they're using a cymbal hit with a hard stick. It's really odd. So it goes like that. I don't know why. It works. It's okay. I don't really care. But this is the 4-movement version of the Symphony Espanol. Thank God. So you don't have to hear the whole thing. Anyway, great Beethoven. That's what that's for. Next, let's see. Johann Strauss II. On the beautiful Blue Danube, Voices of Spring, the Pizzicato Polka, and the Tritch-Tratch Polka, which goes at quite a tempo. It's really tritchy and tratchy. But I have to say, the best thing you can do with the Vienna Philharmonic, which is who we have here, is to shut up, wind them up, and let them go. And Szell does. And that's all you need to say about it. Then we have the Brahms First Piano Concerto with the London Philharmonic and Schnabel. Now, wait a minute, I'm dropping these things as usual. Szell was a Brahms piano concerto sort of specialist, as we all know. His first piano concerto particularly, he really did great. Schnabel's not in his best form here. This is not, in my view, a really great Brahms first piano concerto. It's okay. You know, it's sort of dimly recorded. This one was from 30-something, 38, it looks like. And I got to tell you, you can hear Szell in the piece better elsewhere. It's that simple. And if you want to have Schnabel, you already have this somehow. So I don't think it's one of the great Brahms ones, as I said. So, you know, but it's Szell and it's Schnabel, you know. I mean, it's famous, very famous. Not to me. Next, Wagner, Meistersinger Prelude. These are all at the London Phil. Weber's Oberon, and the Emperor Concerto with Benno Moiseiwitsch. Now, Jed says that there is better Moiseiwitsch doing the Emperor than this particular one. I like it. I like it. It's direct. It's exciting. It's beautifully done, and I think it's a very nice Emperor Concerto. And this is a piece, of course, that you can also get Szell doing on multiple occasions. So again, it's not such a historical treasure because he's done it with Fleischer and he did it with Gills in this box. So but it's historical, like they said, historical. Oh, so historical. What would history be without that? All right. Next, let's see. Oh, yeah. The Dvorak New World Symphony. This is with the Czech fill. And the Cello Concerto with the Czech fill and Pablo Casals. Now, I'm going to be a little bit reactionary here because the symphony is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. These were recorded in 38, around that time. And the sound is somewhat dim, but not terrible. The Dvorak Concerto is a very, very, very famous Dvorak Concerto. But I have to confess, I'm not fond of Casals in this piece. I'm really not. I think he sounds sort of wiry, and I think he blurs a lot of the passage work. Partly it may be a result of the sonics. The playing is a little different than what we usually hear in this piece. It's nice. The opening of the concerto, nowadays it tends to be played much more strictly in rhythm than here. Here, the opening theme is da ba da ba da. They rush the little notes, and in the finale, dum ba da da dum ba da da dum bum 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 ba da da dum bum bum. The ba da da dum thing. Szell kind of just goes ba dum. It sounds like he's missing part of them. I don't know. I've never been fond of this performance. That's me. I just don't like Casals in it. I don't think he had the warmth. I don't think he captures the passion of the piece. I think his tone is wiry and somewhat unpleasant. And hey, what can I say? But Szell's great. Szell's great. He was a great Dvorak conductor. He really was. Now we're into the stereo era. The stereo era right away, and we have this classic Schwarzkopf Four Last Songs and Orchester Lieder with the Berlin Radio Symphony in Szell. Now, this is famous. It's famous for Schwarzkopf, although her mono recording of the Four Last Songs, I think it was with Otto Ackermann, is a little better vocally. She was in better vocal estate, as they say, in the opera biz. But Szell is fantastic, and Schwarzkopf is wonderful in this repertoire. She really is. It was her Fach, as they say, and so she's very Fachy. And her Strauss is a classic, also a classic. This disc of Strauss and Mahler and Mozart, and this is really kind of cool because you get the famous Chiomi Scordi di Te, which is that sort of concert aria thing, and Alfred Brendel is the pianist. It's for soprano, piano, and orchestra. And Szell, of course, was an unbelievable Mozart conductor. This is with the London Symphony, by the way. And let's see, what else do we have here? A bunch of Strauss songs, yes. And they're beautiful. They're just beautiful. They're wonderful. There's nothing not to love. And this, by the way, this disc is much more of a rarity than the Four Last Songs one. For some reason, this one was not ever routinely available in the same way, and I've never quite understood why. So, yes, absolutely. Then, this is controversial. Mahler des Knaben Wunderhorn with Schwarzkopf and Fischdisk, or Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau, as he's better known. But we all call him Fischdisk. All right, here's the problem. First of all, they do duet songs, and Szell assigns the songs in a way which is a little bit unusual. For example, Wer hat das Liedlein erdacht? That's given to Fischdisk. Usually that's never sung by a man. I mean, it's usually sung by a woman who sort of warbles away with it, with the and the question is, are they going to breathe? Are they going to get to the end without breathing? And if they have to take a breath, I feel cheated, frankly. With women, men, we have smaller lung capacity. Anyway, here was the problem with this set. Szell is amazing. You will never hear the accompaniments better done than on this. Here, let's look at this. There you go. You can see it. However, Fischer-Dieskau and especially Schwarzkopf, the two of them just indulge in the most annoying, affected, cutesy poo delivery. It's irritating beyond. I mean, Schwarzkopf particularly. You listen to her warbling away at this stuff, and you just want to go, stop it, shut up, knock it off. I mean, it's maddening, absolutely maddening. Why? Because all of the artsiness, the artfulness that sounds perfectly fine in Richard Strauss and Mozart, where you can over-enunciate each syllable and do whatever you want with in Italian with tiny little phraselets and whatnot. It's all wrong in Das Knaben and Wunderhorn. Why? Because these are stylized folk songs. They need to be sung with innocence and freshness and an artlessness, which is the total antithesis of what these two singers do, frankly. I mean, Szell might have enjoyed it. He might have approved of it. Certainly, of its type, it's amazingly done. But, oh, God, it sounds wrong. It sounds so wrong. So it will always be a controversial choice because you cannot argue with the artistry that went into it. But the result that comes out, a much more debatable proposition. And all right, Beethoven piano concertos with Gills. So how did they stretch them out here? 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 5. They did it well. I mean, had he done more for EMI, they could have stuffed more on here, but that's just the way it goes. Now, again, somewhat controversial. Szell's accompaniments are fantastic. Gills plays really well, but everybody seems to agree that Gills was really better in his earlier EMI recordings of the Beethoven piano concertos. He was in better estate, and I think that all in all, nobody ranks this as one of the great Beethoven piano concerto cycles. Maybe it's a little stiff. I don't know. I like it. I really do. I mean, you get to a point where you have to acknowledge, again, like the Mahler in a sense. I mean, the artistry and the the high level that goes into it. And Szell wasn't going to do anything that was going to go below a certain level anyway. But you will probably have preferred Beethoven piano concerto cycles. And of course, Szell is competing with himself because there's the Fleischer set on Sony, which is sort of the reference edition for a lot of people in the Beethoven piano concertos. And I don't think this is better. But again, it's a Szell box. You get it. So what? Who cares? Okay. Now things get a lot better. The Brahms Violin Concerto with Oistrakh. Mwah! 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 What's not to love? Of course, he also did it with Klemperer, which was also 3 kisses. But, this is Szell. It's his only recording of the Brahms Violin Concerto, and, for a major label. And it's smashing. Absolutely wonderful. It's really one of my major picks. It always was. And it also wasn't released on CD. It was released in Japan. It never got normal play here. I don't know why. It's just weird. And the double concerto, which is so much nicer here, detached from the Karajan triple concerto, which is the way it always got coupled on CD. This is one of the great Brahms double concertos. It's with Oistrakh and Rostropovich. And boy, it sounds like everyone was having a swell time doing it. And you get this lovely picture with them all sitting there arm in arm, having just a whale of a time with it. Total greatness. Absolute greatness. Next, yes. Schubert, the great C major, the Remake. Now, Szell's Sony Schubert Ninth is one of the great Schubert Ninths. It belongs right up there. It's one of my 2 favorites, that one and the Munch, because they're completely different. Munch is all like animalistic high spirits, whereas Szell is all sort of like incredibly intense, but tightly controlled. Oh my God, they're wonderful. And they're such beautiful compliments to each other. This is just as good. This was a piece that Szell, he really had an amazing grasp of it, and they just play like gods, and it's fabulous. Nothing at all not to love. It's marvelous. One of the great Schubert Ninths, and again, did not get a lot of separate attention on CD. These last Szell recordings, they were released on like 2 furs and in strange configurations. So to have them now, properly packaged is really a good thing. and readily available, at least for the 10 minutes this set will be around. Oh, yeah. Dvorak Eight. And these two Slavonic dances, too, which were Szell's big encore pieces. All right. Now, this Dvorak Eight, okay. This Dvorak Eight was better, considerably better than Szell's first one. I'm not sure why. I think his first one was one of his earliest Columbia stereos. You know, the one that usually comes packaged with Dvorak 7, 8, and 9. This was a specialty of his. I mean, not that the earlier one has anything wrong with it. It doesn't. But this is just better recorded, first of all. The sound is better, and the playing is fantastic. And I think this was Szell's last recording. I believe it was. It was made in, 1970. Yeah, just shortly before he died. And it's an absolutely fabulous Dvorak Eighth. Absolutely fabulous. So that's well worth having. And then the last disc is one of those memoirs where you have musicians and other people talking about Szell and what he was like, and some clips of Szell's own interviews. It's quite long. It's 71 minutes of material, and it's well put together. And I don't usually listen to these things because they just drive me crazy, and I don't really care what these people said or what they sounded like. But this is well done. I listened to it and I enjoyed it, and you will too. You get him, talking about his time with the London Symphony and with the Cleveland Orchestra, and we all know the Szell stories. I mean, how anal retentive he was, and how he used to tell the janitors how to mop, and he assigned all of the players parking spaces so he could see when they showed up and if they were there, because seeing if they were in their spot, and the way he used to terrorize all the players, and it's all just juicy. It's great stuff. I mean, it really goes to that mystique that surrounds him, because you have to really consider there are very few conductors. I mean, he's been dead now since 1970, but the impression he made still lingers. I mean, he still holds a certain amount of sway over the Cleveland Orchestra. They still get credit for being Szell's orchestra. I mean, that's really astonishing. I can't think of that being true of any other conductor whose reputation has survived so long after his death in terms of actual performance standards, the pride that the orchestra took in itself as an ensemble, and still does, because he instilled it in them. There are other major conductors. I mean, but nobody thinks, for example, of Furtwängler in terms of like orchestral standards. No one says, the Berlin Philharmonic was Furtwängler's orchestra after Furtwängler left. And Karajan took over. I mean, his influence lasted for about 5 seconds. I mean, he wasn't even cold in the grave before other people were doing things quite differently. But with Szell, now the Cleveland Orchestra cherished his role in forming their corporate identity, and they've preserved it. And they've preserved it very well. And really, I think that's an amazing tribute to the man. And you get a sense of why that happened in this little talk here. So I do recommend it. I think it's really quite interesting. So there you have it. That's it. These Szell Warner recordings, 1934 to 1970. Of course, the irony is that from 1938 to 1968, there weren't any. Or there are a couple in the mid-60s. But for like 30 years in there was nothing. There's a big empty gap. But that's okay. Here it is, and you're going to want it. I don't need to tell you. This is the opportunity to clean up your Szell collections and get all the stuff that's been sitting around on different labels and pirates and remasterings and individual discs, and get it all in a nice, convenient box. Need I say more? Keep on listening, folks. Take care.